We live in a world where everybody is searching for some kind of happiness. Usually they're chasing it in all of the wrong places. And you'll hear lots of people say, well, you can't be happy all the time, can you? And that's not the truth. You can be unshakably happy and you can find peace inside as soon as you realize why you don't have it. The truth is, most people are looking for their happiness and have become dependent on the things that they hope will bring it. So the places they go and the people they meet, the relationships they have and the stuff they buy. They're looking for happiness in those things. They've become dependent on the stuff outside of themselves in order to find a fleeting moment of happiness. And most of us are on a treadmill of trying to get there and get the next fix and go to the next place and get the next thing. But in understanding the nature of these beliefs and how we got them, we can get rid of them and change the driver of our happiness and our peace to inside, not outside. What does that mean? It means that we change from allowing the outside to have control of how we feel and needing the stuff and the people and the things in order to allow the feeling of happiness to come. We change it to full control on the inside. So it becomes a decision. It becomes how am I going to feel today, and I decide I'm going to be happy. And within that happiness and within that decision is also ultimate peace, because while I need stuff on the outside in order to be happy, I've got to figure out how to get it. I've got to strategize how to get there. I've got to think a lot in order to decide how to get the stuff that's going to give me this happiness that I believe resides in something outside of myself. So how do I do this in a fairly quick time? This video's titled in less than 30 days, but the truth is you can do it way quicker than that. This is all about belief structure. It's all about when you were small and maybe your parents started to talk to you about Christmas presents or having things, or maybe you just got lots of stimulus, so you were watching TV and trying to be happy doing that, or you were getting things and you were focused on maybe all of the attention that you got from your parents or your friends or your grandparents. And that's where it all begins. It begins with the craving of something outside of yourself to feel good. If you can't feel good without something else stimulating it, then you are lost for a lifetime. You are going to drop into this endless chase of finding the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it might seem small that you are craving the attention of your parents, or craving the stuff that seems to bring you happiness, or craving the watching the TV and being stimulated. But that conditioning effect has a lifetime of difficulty attached to it. So now you've got to strategize how to get the stuff that's outside to make you feel good inside. But this is a game of understanding your mind and the mechanism of your mind. You can make anything you want true or important. You can have any idea and make it important to you. And that's the basis of deciding where your happiness lies. Everything in our lives that we make important is a thing that is aimed at bringing us some peace or bringing us some happiness. It's important that I go on holiday because I'm going to feel happy when I'm on holiday. It's important that I have a lot of money because I'll be free when I have a lot of money. It's important that I have a relationship because in a relationship I feel better. You can see the relationship between happiness and how you feel with the stuff that we put outside, and how we could make everything important that we think is going to bring us happiness. So all we've got to do in our lives is decide that happiness sits outside of ourselves, and suddenly everything that we think is going to bring it becomes important. The interesting thing about ideas that we make important is that our consciousness and our system of the self, shall we call it, it uses anything we think is important as a trigger. So we'll be driving in the car, and the stuff we think is important will be the stuff that comes up in our minds. It will be the stuff we need to think about next. And because we've been accumulating so much stuff and so much importance over a lifetime, there's just so many triggers. Each trigger brings an idea to mind, and then in that idea we start to think. So the thoughts are the idea speaking, and if we've got an idea that we think is important, it will speak to us a lot in many different places, because we'll be triggered into thinking of the stuff that we've decided is important. Why wouldn't we? Because that's a really nice, elegant system, isn't it? We decide on an idea that's important, and our system brings it into front of mind and makes us think about it again and again and again in random places whenever we've got a moment. And this kind of answers the question of, why do I keep thinking? Why am I non-stop thinking? But the interesting thing is that it's the externalization of our happiness or peace that's actually creating the importance. Everything we decide is important, there's an underlying reason, and that is that it's going to bring us some peace. And we're hoping to get some happiness from all of the things that we think are important, or we're protecting our happiness and trying to avoid the things that might take it away. So we make things that we fear important, and we try to stay away from them. And we make things that we think will bring us happiness important, and we try to strategize how to get to them. The strategy to get there, or the strategy to stay away, is all of the overthinking that we're doing. So actually the root cause of our thinking and the lost peace, because peace is the absence of thought, it's nothing else, it's the absence of all of that strategizing, all of that thinking. So if you want unshakable peace and you want unshakable happiness, you have to peel back the thoughts, or more importantly, the fuel of the thoughts. But if you've been living your life unconsciously, deciding that there's so many things that you need in order to bring you happiness, that you're dependent on the people, places, things, the money, the stuff, and there's so much of that that you've got to be thinking about it almost 24 hours a day, in the middle of the night, 4 a.m, etc, etc, then what you've done is loaded your whole system up with externalities that you now need to chase or avoid. And in doing so, you lose your peace, and you're never happy while you're in the thoughts of needing to be somewhere where you're not already, because all of the ideas that you're chasing, all of the externalities that you think are going to bring you some joy, you don't have them right now. And that's the nature of them. Because we're externalizing, you don't have them. And therefore, you've got to find a way to get to them. This whole process is very elegant, because as soon as we decide that our happiness and peace is outside of ourselves, we have all of the ideas and all of the thoughts associated with them coming in like a train, and we've just got to constantly work through it. So how do we become unshakably peaceful and unshakably happy? We start to learn the mechanism of what makes an idea important. We start to notice ourselves arbitrarily picking on things that we then decide are going to make us important. Maybe the next car, maybe the get out of this relationship, maybe get into the next relationship. And what we do is we learn how to dissolve that importance. We can't go into battle with our thoughts, because our thoughts are just a symptom of the ideas we hold. So what we've got to do is slowly transition away from gaining our joy and our peace externally and towards understanding that we can take responsibility for it internally, i.e., it's just a decision. Am I happy or am I not? And if I'm happy, I'm peaceful. I've got nowhere else to be. If I'm fulfilled, I've got nowhere else to be. And in that case, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to strategize, and my peace comes with my fulfillment. I can't be fulfilled if I need something. So if there's a person I need, if there's a thing I need, if there's a place I need to go, if there's something outside of me that's going to make me happier than I am right now, by definition, I'm not fulfilled. But if I realize that all I've got to do in order to be happy is decide to be happy, then what happens is all of the externalities become redundant. There's no strategy needed, there's no thought needed, there is nowhere to be other than where you are because you're happy where you are. And there's a mechanism by which we can slowly dissolve all of this false importance that we've placed on the external stuff, and we can change our relationship with the outside world and cease to need to control it granularly in order to keep ourselves happy. Because, as we all know, it doesn't work to try to control the outside world to the nth degree. There is no mechanism by which we can do that. We are always going to be disappointed because the outside world never stays constant. When we go for the things that are outside of us in order to make us happy, they don't stay stable. And if it's in people, for instance, people are unpredictable. They come and go, they do things, and everything changes, even though you were hoping that you could leave your partner or your friends or whoever in control of your happiness, and you'd be happy if you were with them. The truth is, it doesn't stay that way. In fact, it doesn't stay that way for very long. You thought the car was going to bring you happiness, and then it became just a car. So nothing stays consistent when the outside world's in charge of how happy you are. But as soon as we strip back and we take away the externalities that we have come to believe are the things that make us happy, suddenly we don't have to control the world at all. We live in a peaceful state because it's not all about managing everybody and everything in our world to stay nice and stable and keep our comfort zone wrapped around us. It's about just being thoughtlessly happy and realizing that it was never the stuff or the people or the places that were actually going to deliver your happiness. That was an illusion. That was a mass hysteria that you bought into, together with everybody else, by the way. You bought into it somewhere along the way, somewhere since the time you were born to probably when you were 3 or 4. You bought into it that early. In fact, you were conditioned into it. You actually got indoctrinated with it. So it's not really surprising that, as soon as somebody said you need qualifications in order to live a happy life, you didn't see that that meant an externality was now holding your lifelong happiness, that a piece of paper and a test result was holding your lifelong happiness, or the good job was holding your lifelong happiness, or the cars or the money or the things. And you got told when you were studying religion that you needed to get married, and marriage was a entity that would bring you happiness, and family and children and all of those externalities were going to bring you happiness. And the money was going to bring you happiness, and the good job was going to bring you happiness, and the success was going to bring you happiness. And it's not that surprising that you didn't really see what that actually meant. It meant that you were being asked to leave things outside of you, such as money, cars, jobs, and success, in charge of how you felt. In fact, they were going to be in charge of how you felt for the rest of your life. And even though you didn't see it, you bought in anyway. And you've been on that treadmill ever since. Unshakable happiness is an unpacking of that process. It is a letting go of that process. And using the mechanism of the mind and the self in order to serve you rather than the lack of service that it's giving you when you externalize. So when you externalize, the mechanism of the self is just bringing the ideas to front of mind that you've decided are important to make you feel good, and it's endlessly forcing you to think about them. If we use that mechanism in the opposite direction, what we can do is redirect away from the ideas that we've decided are holding our happiness and holding our truth and holding our peace, and we can literally dissolve their importance. And what happens then? We cease to think about them. And in the peace that comes when we stop thinking, we can't be unhappy.